Shalom is always all praises, honor, and glory goes to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakahakwadash, double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, peace and salutations to the elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Lord willing, this one will be edifying to the elect and straight to the point. So I came across this post on social media of this bird here, and she says that I hate black people. I hate being black. Salakia, she said, I hate half black people. I hate being black. I hate monkeys. We don't fuck with niggers over here. Don't care who you are. They ruined it for all of you. If I could change my DNA, I would pay up to 50 million to do it. Focus on picking cotton, not on me. Thanks. And I could understand what she was saying up until the point that she said, I can understand everything, but I could agree with some things based on the perspective that you're looking on this from. Up until she said that if she could change her DNA, she would, right? And the reason why is because there's no nation that's greater than Israel, that's greater than being a so called black person, which no one is black. But Israel is above all nations. No one is the color black because the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, he knew what he was doing when he started calling us black, because the word black has a very negative vibration. It has a lot of witchcraft attached to it. It means void of light. It means darkness. It doesn't have positive vibrations, right? It doesn't have a positive meaning, based on his definition, based on the words, based on the spells, because words, under Esau's rulership in Esau's kingdom, a lot of words are spell words, right? And the word black is pretty much a spell word. It's pretty much a word that was used to degrade us while they call themselves white, because white means holy and pure. And they're the real black people, really and truly. Spiritually, they're black, and spiritually, we're holy. We're created as white people, as holy people, as pure people, right? Now, that's what I have to say about black, because when you look on your phone screen, when your phone is off, right, your cell phone, that's what black is. No one is that color. And when you look on that, it just looks dead. No one wants to go down a dark alley. It's pitch black. It's very negative. There's a lot of negative things about the color black. So that's why they associated that with us, after, the Lord gave them the power to destroy us, through the different captivities, especially, the transatlantic slave trade. Esau completely destroyed us, right? And that's according to Bible prophecy. So yes, our women and our are the men of our nation. They're monsters. The scripture speaks about, mentions women shall bring forth monsters. A lot of them are monsters. They're terrible, and that's just according to prophecy. And then you have the prophecy of Esau being on horses and Jake, not Jake, being servants as a scripture. How does it go? I've seen, servants on horses, right? Because Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, is really they're created to be servants to the Israelites, right? All these nations are subjects to the nation of Israel, under the rulership of Yahushua, King David, on down, right, in the kingdom. But that's their purpose. And we're going to get precepts to show that. So when she said that she would pay to change her nationality, I was like, whoa. Or change her DNA, which, pretty much changing her race. Why would you want to be a heathen? And I just came to think she may be a tear, because only Edomites think like this. At first, I was like, all right, cool. She's mad. She's just lashing out on how, the so-called black people behave and how they do indeed spoil a lot of things, for the rest of, so-called black people, Israelites, the behavior of Israel, is highlighted. The behavior of the Israelites, whether it's the Latin tribes or, the darker tribes, meaning, you so-called Negroes, the Caribbean, people of the Caribbean, the so-called Caribbean, people of the, of America, the so-called African Americans, they have a bad image, and Esau kind of, he kind of what's the word I'm looking for? He kind of exaggerates at times. Yeah, they're terrible, but he makes it seem as though his nation, the devil, what the Bible speaks of, they're any saints or they do anything good, because nothing that we do can compare to what they have done. And even compared to what they're still doing, they're just at a more advanced stage in their rulership, even though their kingdom is coming to an end. What I mean by that, they destroy the whole, all of the nations secretly, you know, in a very subtle way, because they're serpents. Say they do it in a way where it seems like it's harmless, right? They destroy you with the chemicals they spray in the air, the foods, the things that they put in the foods. So I'm gonna stop rambling and read some precepts. The first one here is Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6, and it says, For thou art an holy people unto Yahweh thy power. Yahweh thy power has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Right? So she just doesn't know. And a lot of the times, when you hear these people speak, you got to dissect each point, and also remember that they don't know the things that we know, in this truth. The things that we know it's more valuable than diamonds and pearls and gold. It's priceless. This truth, this knowledge that we have, because she doesn't know why she feels like that, and she doesn't know why our people are in that state, but we do. We have the answers, right? But what she needs to understand is that we're created to be a special people, and why our people behave in the ways that they do is because of the curses. Because the Lord's prophecies have to be fulfilled, and the behavior of our people today is just a part of prophecy, right? So I'm going to read a little bit more. So verse 7 says, The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the fiercest of all people. The Lord already chose the spirits of the Israelites from the beginning. The first spirits, all of the different generations, going from the Adamites, down to, Jacob, down to today, right? The spirits, the Lord, before he formed us in the belly, he knew us, he knew every single Israelite spirit. So the Lord, as it says, is not because we not because we were more in number than any people, because we were the fewest of all the people, but because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, hath Yahweh brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh the king. Right? And the Lord is going to do this again in these times, because the Lord is going to deliver his elect. Yahushua is coming for his elect, elect 1/3, men, women, and children, and the 144,000 men, which are all prophets, right? And only men. So it's very important to understand that we are the chosen people, no matter what state or people are in. Having a thought of wanting to change your DNA, or if you had the option, you would. That's just ignorance. That's just because of your lack of understanding, because our people are foolish. They don't know Yahweh Shem Shai. Majority of our people will never know Yahweh Shem Shai on this side. They have to wait until the kingdom comes, right? Because this is 2nd Esdras chapter 6, verse 56. As for the... All right, let me read a little bit more. Because this is really the point. I would never want to be another nation, man. It doesn't matter which nation, especially Esau. Esau has the worst judgment to come. But this is 2nd Esdras chapter 6, verse 55. And all this I have spoken before thee, O Yahweh, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes, Yahweh Shem Shai, Bahashem Rakakudash. As for the other people which also come of Adam, thou hast said they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, spit, and has likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. When you wash your face and the water that drop, falls on the floor, you don't give a fuck about that. Nobody cares. The Lord does not care about the other nations. The other nations are merely servants for us, right? In this day and age, they're not serving Israel, but in the kingdom to come, they will, because that's what the prophecies say. That's what's written. All of the nations will come to Israel to learn of her righteousness, to learn the righteous ways. We'll teach them the laws. They will be the ones that will be learning to do the right things according to our law. We will already know they will be within us. We will be perfect. They won't be perfect because they're nothing. And the Lord still has mercy on them. But to want to hate, I definitely think she may be a tear, man. I believe she's a tear because to want to be a heathen, that's just off. Like, no matter what, real Israelites don't have that feeling, man. Because it's something within us that we know. Even the ones, the bugged out ones, the ones that are destroyed. She has that Uncle Ruckus spirit on her. And that's ultimately a Edomite spirit, right? And it says, has likened them unto the abundance of them, Salakia, and has likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. Right. And now, O Lord, behold, these heathen which have ever been reputed as nothing have begun to be lords over us, to devour us. So someone like her, she's gonna see the destruction of her people, destruction of so-called black people, the degrading behaviors that they have, the things that, the hood rat shit that they do, the terrible things that these so-called black people do, and she's gonna look down on them, and she thinks that, oh, the Edomites don't behave like the so-called white people and they behave decent, which in a sense it appears that way, yes. But the reason why our people behave the way they do, even though we hate it, and we hate them for different reasons, not for the reason that she hates them, because we don't hate our people to the point, oh, I don't want to be an Israelite, no, because we understand. We hate the way they behave. We hate the way how wicked our women behave. We hate the way how these niggas in the world behave, man. The wickedness that they do, because it goes against the laws of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, and we want them to be purged because we want to live in a righteous world. We don't hate them because we just hate niggas and we hate ourselves. No. The hate that we have for them is a righteous hate, right? We hate the wickedness that they do, because we don't hate our people in general. We love our people. We love all tribes, all Israelites, but we hate the state that they're in, the wickedness that they indulge in. That's why the scriptures speak about, let me just get it here, if I have it up. Yes, this is Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 2, and it says, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, right? Because a lot of our people have learned wicked ways of the heathen. They're not following after the ways of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. The ways of our ancestors, the ways of our, the elders, the ways of, the prophets, the ways of our people. They're not following the laws that were given to us. They're not following those instructions. So what's going to happen? They're going to behave like degenerates. But never you think that we would want to be Edomites, or we want to be an Elamite or a Moabite. Hell no. Because we're the greatest people on the planet Earth, no matter what state we're in. And it goes on to say, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them, because when the chariots come, when the Lord comes for his elect, a lot of you Israelites are going to be bugged out because you're not in the spirit. The Lord isn't dealing with you at this time. And you take on so many wicked ways of the heathen. So you're going to be in that heathenistic mindset. You're going to be dismayed when you see the signs of in the heavens, when you see the chariots and the so-called UFOs, big, gigantic, dark skin beings are coming out of these spaceships, these chariots, right? which they're angels, and the angels are a people. We're angels in human bodies right now. And a lot of you people don't understand that. And she definitely doesn't understand who she is or who she potentially is, because I do believe that she's a tear. To say something so stupid, it's just like, whoa. I don't think it's that bad to to wish to be an Edomite. But then again, she's a woman. Women are weak. She's gonna have that type of, the emotions are gonna get the best of her, right? But at the end of the day, we're all subject to the curses, even her, because she the Lord has given her people strong delusions. So she may well be an Israelite woman, you know. It's just that strong delusion, that she may believe lies. She's confused. She doesn't know what's true. She needs a man of the Lord. But these women are, a lot of these women will be blessed to experience a man of the Lord on this side. But they're gonna want for one in the times to come in Jacob's trouble. She's not gonna be caring about, oh, I hate black people, I hate niggas. She's gonna want a nigga in that day. So she just doesn't know. But I decide as an opportunity, to, bring out the precepts, bring out the truth. Right? So I already quoted this one. And I'll read it again. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 7. I've seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. Because she sees her people, walking as servants, behaving in a very low way, she has a certain hate. But her hate is not coming from a place of understanding, and righteousness. It's still ignorant, Her hate is coming from a very ignorant place. So this is, so I'll close with that one. So this is Malachi chapter 1, verse 4. Let me see if I need to read this. A lot of these people, a lot of our people, especially Eve, because Eve, you have a lot of Eve sometimes, they low-key like Esau. They like the power that Esau has, and she's in that spirit, I'll change my DNA if I could. Well, if you were to change to an Edomite, that's the worst nation you could be on planet Earth, because that's the only nation that's promised, eternal destruction. They're going to be fully wiped away completely. Not their spirits, but they're the nation of so-called white people, Caucasian people, the Edomites. They're going to be wiped away after 1,000 years. This is Malachi chapter 1, verse 4. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. They shall call them the border of wickedness, the people against whom the Lord has indignation forever. Let me just go into that in the blue letter real quick. It says the Lord has indignation with them forever. Right? That's not somewhere you want. That's not a people that you want to be. So here's 1-4. All right. So I just want to get that word in indignation, and I'll close with second Esdras. But really and truly, a lot of these things, these different takes, these different opinions that our people have, they just don't know. They don't have the answers, man. And that's what happens, man. The Lord picks their delusions. Right? So when it goes into curse and the anger of the Lord, you don't wanna experience the anger of Yahweh Shem Shai, because the Lord hasn't really shown his anger as yet. Right? So the Lord is going to destroy all of these Edomites. He's going to destroy all heathen as well. So the point is, you should never wish to be another nation, or if I had 50 million, I would change my DNA. You might just get your wish, and that's the worst wish you could ever get. The worst thing that you could ever wish for is to become an Edomite. So this is 2 Esdras chapter 6, verse 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Right? Because the world is going to be ruled in righteousness. all of these wicked ass Israelites that you see, these so now doing all of these terrible things, behaving in these degrading, low life ways, behaving like the heathen, you know, doing all kind of shameful things, man, will be righteous in the kingdom. They will be perfect in the kingdom. They'll be reborn, as newborns in the kingdom, and they'll be gods, only, only knowing, only doing righteousness, superhuman, so to speak, gods, right? So again, it says, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. And that's what we hope for. We wait and we hope for that world that is ruled in righteousness. That's what we hope for, man. And that salvation, those are the things that we hold dearly, because we understand and we know why our people behave in the way they do, and we hate the way they behave, whilst knowing why they're behaving in that way, because we're all subject to the prophecies. Even the men of the Lord that are in the know, we still go through curses as well. The difference is we were gifted the truth. We were awakened out of sleep. Now we're actually living, in the spirit. But it's hard to live in Esau's world, because we live in the spirit. We don't look for this world for actual living. We have to live spiritually in the things that we exercise, in the things that we understand and know, the things that we believe. We're not really living in Esau's world otherwise, in the flesh. You can enjoy a few things here and there, but it's so limited. It's not really living, because the way that we want to live and how we know living is supposed to be, we cannot do that. We can only rehearse, some righteous things and practice things to the best of our ability, but we're not yet in our kingdom, in our rulership. So I'm gonna just leave it there. And as always, all praises, honor, and glory goes to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakahak Wadash, Abad Babal. Shalom.